Let's have ourselves a quick little fun history lesson. Friday, October the 13th is a date already steeped in a dark history, and we've always heard about the myth, the legend of this particular date since growing up. And where does this come from? Well, Friday, October the 13th in the year 1307 was the day King Philip of France declared all Knights Templars Satan worshippers and that they were to be arrested on sight if they were seen. And this led to a very dark history for that particular organization. And since then, that date has been steeped in a very dark stigma. And what's even more ironic is this year, in the year 2023, Friday, October the 13th, is going to be yet another day where people lose their minds because potentially it's going to be the day that Microsoft is going to close the deal with Activision Blizzard and ending this over 20-month saga that has unfolded all across the world in multiple courtrooms in different countries and has created one hell of a circus act of regulations. Now, before you go clicking off thinking that you've heard everything you needed to hear at this point and that it's a done deal on the October 13th date, well, please come close. The particular information I'm wanting to share with you right now has actually got me pretty much booed and shut up on other podcasts in the past. I'm not very well liked in a certain group of the Xbox community because I like to think with a level head and I don't like to kind of feed anybody on my channel the idea that it's going to be a cut and dry process for the rest of the week and that Microsoft is going to go riding into the sunset with Activision. There is some stipulations that we all need to be aware of and some cold hard truths that you need to accept. For starters, we know that earlier this year, the CMA moved to block the Activision deal because they felt that Microsoft had a monopoly on the cloud streaming services market. And so Microsoft decided to then kind of pivot and sell the cloud streaming rights for Activision titles to Ubisoft. This will now allow Ubisoft to distribute those cloud titles to whoever wants them, which will improve not only the reach of those games, but also the access for consumers to have in being able to play those games. That sounds all good and grand. Even the CMA says by Microsoft making this move to divest that part of Activision has made the CMA lean towards potentially approving the deal. Now, I say potentially because the CMA have yet to give their final verdict on approving the deal, and that's supposed to happen within a couple days of this video coming out. I mean, it's going to happen very quickly, and hopefully there's no surprises there and that the CMA continue leaning towards approving the deal. But this is where I feel a little trepidatious because just a few days ago, it came out that not only is the CMA wanting to investigate Microsoft further, but now they're also wanting to investigate Amazon on how both Microsoft and Amazon are using their power, their strength in the cloud service providers market where they bully and monopolize competitors to where there is no way for any other company to be able to compete with Microsoft and Amazon. And let's just face it, we know when it comes to the cloud infrastructure, Microsoft and Amazon provide those services on a very large scale, from anywhere from a government to a state agency, all the way down to a small business. So just be aware that the CMA are already wanting to continue down the path of wanting to kind of know what Microsoft's dealings are in the cloud market as a whole, but they are also going to be heavily ingrained and invested for years to come with Microsoft. They might as well be business partners right down the hall from each other, with the CMA keeping a close eye on what Microsoft is doing with Activision Blizzard for the future. Now, the next thing is because of the CMA's interference in causing Microsoft to have to divest the Activision streaming rights to Ubisoft, this kind of changed the deal a little bit for the EU. The EU had already approved the deal based on the stipulations that Microsoft had provided them, but now the game has changed. The stipulations are different because Ubisoft is involved. So now the EU has yet to weigh in on a again approving the deal. There hasn't been any signs that the EU has an issue with this divestiture, but yes, be aware that the EU also still has to provide approval again because the CMA caused Microsoft to have to change the deal, and the EU has to make sure that the other companies that Microsoft promised to give access to those titles are still going to have access to them. So yet again, another little bit of red tape and political grandstanding that has to take place for the ABK deal to officially close. This brings us to the FTC and the amazing and logically thinking Lina Khan. Lina Khan has led the FTC on this insanity of a warpath against big tech, causing them to throw all these court cases at the wall in a hope and a prayer of which ones will stick in the end. And let's just say Lina Khan has a big track record of losing when it comes to going against big tech. And that's where this is what she has done with Microsoft. She has lost against Microsoft back in July. She has already tried to appeal the decision of the federal judge, and it looks like that's going to be a failure as well. And as soon as they get the final verdict from the appeals judge, they are going to wait 21 days and go through with having their administrative court. Now, here's the little bit of tidbit that got me booed off of a podcast and got people feeling a certain way about me. Here is a cold hard fact about how the FTC works. They don't approve deals. They don't approve them. They will just sit in the background and they will just let the deal pass without them saying yes. The FTC is an organization that loves to say no, but they never say yes. At any time, if they find any ounce of evidence or a reason to be able to force Microsoft to split the deal, they can do this. It has happened in the past. The FTC has recently tried this with Meta, with Facebook, on them trying to basically split them away from Instagram. And this is how the FTC works. You could go 5-10 years after making your deal, and all of a sudden the FTC shows up at your doorstep saying that they want you to go to court and force you to split the company up. So this is where Lina Khan is going to go down that warpath and that very logical train of thinking that even if the deal closes, she is still going to throw every court case she can at the wall in the hopes that one of them is going to stick, and she is going to be able to force Microsoft to bend to the whims of her will. Now, as of filming this video, it is October 9th. We are 9 days away from the actual deadline that this deal has to close by. If Microsoft does not close the ABK deal by October 18th, they will have to put out a payout of $4.5 billion to Activision and renegotiate once again the terms of the deal. The deal was already changed back in July when the closing date was extended from around July 12th to now October 18th. And this is where I really hope that Microsoft gets this deal across the finish line and that we are not going to have any surprises take place between now and October 18th. Other than the surprise of Microsoft finally coming out saying that they are able to close the deal and that we have now been able to put back in the rearview mirror the 20 months of absolute hell that we have gone through in watching this deal take place. The hell of watching people consistently talk about it, console war about it, grandstand about it. It is turned into an absolute circus. I mean, I could have never predicted that there was going to be as many world regulators that there was that did as much political grandstanding as they did to somehow act like they got one up on Microsoft and was like, yep, look what we made them do. That was me. That was me. I'm big and powerful. So at this point, all we can do is sit back and wait and watch what happens and hope for the best. But in the end, if Microsoft is able to close this deal out, we are going to see an absolute amount of people lose their minds on social media. All the haters and fanboys out there are going to declare that this is going to be the worst thing for gaming because it hurts their little salty feelings. But we are also going to see the shock from analysts all around the world that thought that it wouldn't be possible for Microsoft to be able to take on all of these regulators and actually get this deal across the finish line. And it will really show the perseverance and determination that Microsoft and all of those involved in the deal really had when it came to getting this deal to close. So if you're like me, wanting to stay tuned for what's next when it comes to the ABK deal, please subscribe to my channel, like, comment down below, everything that YouTube likes to see to help my channel grow. I'd really appreciate it. Also, check out the end card on this video, watch my last video, explore my channel and previous content. And as always, everybody, just remember to play the games that you prefer on the console that you prefer, no matter what anybody says. I am Centurion1307, and thank you for watching.